Are you curious about entering the rope space but don't know what vetting is? Watch this video to learn a definition, why it's important, and red flags to look out for.
Jackie's Garden.
Hello little sprouts, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie, I come from TikTok. I've been here on YouTube for 4 years, rebranding my content to talk about the safety and education of rope bondage. And today we'll be talking about vetting, why it's important, its definition, and my red flags to look out for. But before we begin, here are a couple disclaimers. 1. I'll be talking about the rope space specifically because I feel credible about how to navigate it safely, and for new beginning curious minds, this is my personal advice for how to navigate it. Disclaimer number 2. Within this video, I'll be providing examples of what I think to be red flag and sus behavior. This is my opinion, and you may not believe that this is a red flag behavior or something of the sort. But for me, I would not tolerate that personally, and therefore I'm sharing what I believe to be a suspicious behavior, and therefore I would not tolerate it. And would encourage you to also think critically about what you are willing to afford and or be around. Disclaimer number 3. After watching my video, I highly encourage that you look into vetting more. What I say is not the opinion of the entire community. It is simply my own opinion and how I choose to traverse the space, and therefore encourage you to traverse and explore the space. Please continue to do research and don't just have this video be your point of truth. I want you to be able to critically think and explore various questions, and I will be providing some examples of those questions, but there are instructors out there who have also helped me to vet more thoroughly. Do not have my video or my opinions be the only thing that you base the rope community off of, because it is solely my opinion to own. And there will be people that disagree with me, and that is perfectly fine. I stand confidently in what I believe. So why am I making this video? I have been getting a flurry of messages both in my comments and my DMs of people almost begging to be tied by me. And this to me isn't a compliment. This is a red flag. For people who are blindly asking a stranger on the internet to tie them, you are putting a lot of trust and power in my hands, and I am uncomfortable by that. I do not know you, you do not know me, and therefore, for your safety, I'm going to reject the offer. Now, not everyone will take your safety in mind. I know that by not knowing you as a person, what your intentions are for rope and what you want from rope, that there could be a lot of miscommunication, and therefore the first tie or the first scene you are doing with someone could go wrong because we don't know what it is that we're using rope for. And that is why vetting and negotiation is so crucial. The excitement behind rope is amazing, and I want you to foster that, but I don't want your excitement for rope to overshadow the underlying safety risks of just being tied by someone. If you are someone who wants to be tied and you are asking someone to do that, you are relinquishing power and giving control to another individual. You should be making sure that person is credible and safe in order to give them that power. Not everyone is trustworthy, and every community has its creeps. Subsequently, I've also been getting messages from people asking how they can find someone who wants to be tied. I'm disgusted by this answer personally, because you are asking to find someone to tie when you haven't thought of tying yourself first. And if you haven't thought about tying yourself, why do you want to put rope on someone else but have an aversion to it on you? Are you feminizing rope? Are you giving it a gender and thinking that it's only for femme people? Or do you genuinely just don't want rope on you? And even then, I ask you, why? This question also, in my mind and how I read these questions, is very dehumanizing to whomever they are going to approach to tie. They want to practice on someone, but that doesn't mean that they would treat them as a human. And a lot of times when people are entering the rope space, they are focused on getting the knots and frictions right, and they completely disregard the person they're tying. They're not checking in, they're not saying, how does that feel? They're focusing purely on the rope. And rope dynamics are an emotional dynamic. If you want to tie on a mannequin, by a mannequin. But tying with someone means that there is an emotional and mental and physical component that you will also need to shoulder if you are going to be the rope top in that situation. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that conversation. If I am to provide advice before we get into vetting, I would encourage you to Google Shibari Studio near me. You'd be surprised by what comes up. And typically, at least the trend that I've noticed, is that if there's a pole dancing studio or an aerial studio nearby, sometimes, like maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, they sometimes partner with a Shibari studio. And there are classes online that you can find and attend. But if you are to attend these classes, I would encourage you, and it is my advice, to attend for the community. Do not go with the intention of finding a counterpart to tie or be tied by. Entering the rope space without learning vetting or negotiation leaves you vulnerable to manipulators and predators who like to prey on naive people who want to be in rope but don't know yet to also vet and ask for credible resources from those who are topping them. I can't emphasize it enough that if you are someone that wants to be tied, you are choosing to relinquish power to someone. You better vet them and make sure that they are a safe person to do so. And how can you do that? By building a community of friends around you that you tie alongside, potentially with later on. But that's not guaranteed. And again, I don't want you to come into the rope space looking for someone to tie or be tied. Tie yourself and look for the community, the friendships there. And through those friendships and community, you can start to network and ask, hey, so-and-so who has been tying for 5+ years has asked to tie with me. Are they a good person? And that is the start of vetting. So what is the definition of vetting? It is straightforward and to the point. It is the process of critically analyzing something or someone. A very normalized version of vetting are background checks for job applications, interviews, also for jobs. It has become so normalized that we analyze people who fit our professional team. And yet, when we talk about vetting, a lot of people associate with the kink and BDSM community because in the vanilla world, you don't vet your friends. You just pick a random stranger who you vibe with and then you become friends. However, I have seen a positive trend within recent generations where you are starting to be more selective on who has access to your energy. And that is a version of vetting. And I am so here for it. I want vetting to be more normalized within all facets of our life because our energy deserves to be preserved, and those around us, not all of them should have access to that. And if they are individuals of poor character or morals, they shouldn't get access to that. Call it selfish, but that's what this era is. It is our selfish area protecting ourselves because being kind and giving people the benefit of the doubt never benefited us. I said what I said. So now that you've had some examples of vanilla life having vetting, why is it important with rope? Rope is a form of risk play, meaning that if done improperly or with someone who is unsafe, you can have chronic damage, especially within your nerves and or mental, physical, or emotional trauma. Not everyone has your best interests at heart. Every community has its creeps, and I'm going to say that confidently because we know it to be true. And I'm going to say it in order to protect you. This is not meant to be a scary video. It is meant to be a realistic video so that you can prepare yourself and also be able to protect yourself with vetting questions and talking to the community that I encourage you to find first in order to keep yourself and those you care about in your space safe. Rope has risk. And rope is a power exchange. One person is consensually relinquishing power to another individual, and that individual is then taking responsibility for the mental, physical, and emotional well-being of that individual. It is a power exchange, meaning that the person you relinquish power to should be someone of trustworthy morals and values, not just someone that you see on the internet and ask to be tied by. Honeys, no. Now let's get into some examples of vetting questions. The first question, what are your intentions with rope? And then what are your intentions with me? Rope is diverse. Shibari is expansive in all the facets it could potentially be used for. There is art and creativity. There is sensualism and connection. There is pain and torture, if consensually given. And then there's also intimacy, sexual intimacy with partners. Knowing and asking what the person's intentions are will give you a clear understanding and basis on whether or not you want to go forward with them. I'm going to tell this to the people pleasers who want to be in rope. If someone's intentions do not align with yours, the biggest example that I can provide is someone says, I like to use rope for sexual purposes, and you yourself identify as either asexual and or you don't want things to be sexual, I would personally not tie with this person. Why? Because unless this person is credible, has a good standing within the community, and has not had any backlash or previous history of bad behavior, if someone wants to do something on one side of the spectrum, which is sexual, and you do not, there is very little middle ground where both of you will feel fulfilled. Again, this is my opinion, and you are more than welcome to disagree with me. However, I will never tie with someone who has a sexual intention for rope. I have rejected a lot of invites of people who have wanted me to tie them and have me tease them while in rope. That's not my thing. I'm uncomfortable by that, and therefore I will not do it. Both a rope top and a rope bottom are able to say, this isn't for me, and walk away from the situation and find someone who would better complement your intentions. There are people out there. Do not settle or waver your boundaries simply because you are wanting to be tied sooner rather than later. This is the biggest piece of advice and encouragement I can provide you. Ask the intentions of what someone has with rope and what they have with you. Number 2, ask them about their experience. Now take this answer with a grain of salt. There are a lot of predatory people who have been in the space for 10 plus years. So if they say, oh, I've been working with rope for 15 years, that's impressive. But what have they done while in the community for that 15 years? Have they broken consent? Are they in good standing with LGBTQ plus trans? Ask these questions. You need to be specific in who you want to align yourself with, because unless you ask it, it will go unsaid. Now, on the opposite side of it, if someone's new to rope, then you can potentially have friendship with them and say, I am also new. And at that point, you still ask them, what are your intentions? What are your intentions with rope and me? And whether or not you want to platonically pursue something, that is great, but that is how community is made. You don't necessarily have to tie together immediately. And again, this is my opinion. This is how I would traverse the space, and this is what has kept me safe personally. The next question I would ask, especially if this is a rope top wanting to tie with you, ask them if they have hurt a rope bottom in the past, and how did they remedy the situation? How did they handle it? Now, this question can be a hit or miss, because if you're new to the community, you may not have injured someone, which may not provide the answers that you want or need, but also a long-standing member may never have injured their rope bottom. However, sometimes it will happen. When that rope bottom was injured, did they provide emotional, physical, and mental support for them? Did they make amends with that person? Are they still trusted by the person they hurt? Or based off of their reaction or lack thereof, their support and assistance, are they no longer on talking terms? And if so, are you able to reach out and connect with that rope bottom and get more details on what happened? Speaking of reaching out to past rope bottoms, ask people for references, both as a top and a bottom. If you are a bottom asking for references from a top, you'll ask them for references on their recent work within like the last 6 months. And that means that they will provide information of people who will willingly vouch for them and their experiences with them being a rope top. Vice versa, if you are a rope top looking for a rope bottom, you ask for their experience and for references. You ask for the experience of the rope bottom because based off of what you have done in your experience, sometimes tying beginners can be a safety risk because they may not know finger checks. They may not know what active rope bottoming is. There's a lot to teach a new rope bottom. And as a rope top, that is up to you to decide whether or not you want to invest that time. So ask for references, ask for experience, and preferences for what rope type to use. That's the next question. What rope type do you like to use? As you guys have seen in my videos, I like to use primarily jute, but there are a lot of people who have grass allergies and therefore can't handle jute. So for us tying together, either they need to supply the rope or we can't tie together because I am most confident working with jute. I've had to decline some amazing experienced rope bottoms because they want to work with nylon, and I myself do not feel confident working with nylon. It is a great rope type and I highly encourage those who want to use it to do so. It's just a little bit too slick for me, and that is again, my preference. These are currently the only questions that I would think to ask, but if you yourself as a rope bottom or rope top have other great vetting questions to ask, please drop them in the comments below because I myself am also looking to expand the questions that I ask people, or I will also encourage future people to use. Vetting needs to be critically analyzed and done thoroughly. These questions to me usually provide an answer within these 4 to 5 questions, but sometimes having a whole list of vetting questions isn't a bad thing. To vet thoroughly means that you are advocating for your safety and your protection when being vulnerable and with relinquishing that power to someone, or someone giving that power to you and you owning that responsibility. Finally, we're on to the red flags to look for. Now, once again, these are my opinions on what red flags are. It could just be an ick for some people, could be a yellow flag. Does not matter. For me and how I have chosen to traverse this space, these are the red flags that I see and will not engage with. If you are a curious rope bottom and you are new to the community and you have made very little community impact, not going to events, not going to the studios, etc., and a rope top reaches out to you and asks to tie, red flag. Experienced rope tops usually have rope bottoms and their time has already been taken with pre-existing dynamics. Why would a long-standing rope top reach out to you if you yourself haven't already made a public statement that you want to be tied and are looking for things? This could be an example of someone preying on a naive new person in the rope space, someone who does not know how to negotiate or vet or ask these critical questions to show that you are consciously looking out for yourself before ever relinquishing anything to them. So in my opinion, it is a red flag when an experienced rope top reaches out to a newbie entering the community immediately or very quickly, especially if it is done online and you have never met them in person. Sus. The thing I probably should have mentioned before all these questions is that you should probably be asking these at public events that you have gathered in, like a social event or a studio roping space, etc. But definitely at least go out in a public space for coffee or something to ask these questions before ever tying with someone. Vet thoroughly and make sure you are in a public space in case anything goes wrong and or they turn out to be predatory. Other red flag behavior to look out for. If you ask someone for references and they get defensive and or do not want to provide references, why? For myself personally, I am enthusiastic and excited to show the work I've done, especially if someone is very clear with me about their intentions. I would like to suspend. I like using jute. I only want it for artistic uses. What are your references? I will give them pictures and consented social media usernames of people who have already told me I will be your reference. And I will give them that willingly because I myself am proud of the work that I've done. So if someone is not wanting to give you references, maybe it's because they don't have any, they might be new, or of the experiences they've had, it has been negative and therefore no one is willing to positively advocate for them, because that's what a reference is. I remember when I was new to entering the roping community, there was someone who messaged me and they said that they would be willing to be my mentor. And I was curious about the idea of a mentorship. I was like, okay, well, what is your experience, and what does a mentorship or an internship under you look like? This person had the audacity to say that they had been a part of the community for 3 years now, but they mostly worked with rope and a form of like brainwashing. Looking at my profiles, talking about being a shibari instructor, cosplay shibari person, and just a general shibari enthusiast, where on there did it say brainwashing? Want to learn that. Interesting. I was like, I'm not really interested in that. So what does being like mentored by you look like? And he said that he would practice the brainwashing techniques on me in order for me to see how it works. No, sir. I allowed the conversation to go on because it was already such a red flag. I just wanted to see how much worse it could get. I asked for references, and they said that of the people they tied in the past, they were exes and therefore no longer on good standing with them. So 2 things within that statement. 1, all the people he's tied in the past have been romantically and sexually affiliated with him, which is already going against what I choose to use rope for, which is artistic, therapeutic deep tissue pressure. There is nothing sexual about that for me, which means that he and I already weren't compatible, but this meant that he was disregarding my boundaries and my definitions and intention behind rope and substituting his own. Yes, it was a man. The second thing I got from that response was the experience that these individuals had with this person were so negative that they no longer want to associate or affiliate with this person. That is not good. That is red flag behavior. So after this final response, I professionally and cleanly said, we are not compatible for rope, and therefore I don't think that I should be mentored by you. And that was where it ended. The other thing to consider in regards to references is that references can also be planted, which is why I again encourage first join the rope community for the community aspects and feelings, the support, before ever diving into dynamics specifically, because regardless of how much we try to be our own individual, the top 5 people we have in our life will influence us. And if one of those people happens to be the person you are in a dynamic with, their perspective on how the community is will ultimately shape your perspective and your bias of X person, Y person, Z person. It is better to enter the community for the community and then learn the history of who to avoid and who is so far good. Which means that if you have that friend group, that community before ever going into a dynamic officially with someone, you can cross-reference these references of this person to see if they are biased, because you would be surprised by the individuals who advocate for predatory behavior. So it is so crucial to cross-reference and build that community so that you can protect yourself and those around you. Now, I know this video is different than my previous ones, but it is because this topic to me means so much. And if I am to advocate for people entering the rope space, I want you to do so safely and with awareness for how things work so that you can protect yourself. Thank you, Little Sprouts, for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it educational and informative. If you have any comments or extra vetting questions, please leave them in the comments below. I want to make sure that I am doing my best to advocate for how to safely traverse this space, and I don't want you to be scared by it. I just want you to understand the reality of every community, and I only ever want you to be safe when exploring yourself, your desires, and what it is you want in this life. Until next time, bye, Little Sprouts.